Seventh graders, this is a second day of estimating with fractions, except today we're going to work on multiplying and dividing. And the first problem I have here is 1 5/8 times 3 1/3. And when we've been working on these with adding and subtracting, we've been estimating our fractions to whole numbers or halves. So in this question, 5/8 is more than halfway, just a little bit. So if I do my helpful numbers here, my choices are 1, 1.5, and 2, and I see 5 is closest to 4, so I would have rounded this to 1.5, and then this one here, my choices are 3, 3.5, and 4, and if I use my helpful numbers on top, that would be eating nothing of the pie. This would be half of my 3 slices, and then this would be all of it. And 1 is closest here, so my estimate would be 3.5. The problem is if I go to multiply these two numbers mentally, 1.5 times 3.5, that's not an easy task. And the whole point of estimating is to make things easy. So we're not going to do this the same way we do with addition and subtraction. What we're going to talk about here is when a fraction is at least a half or more, we're going to round that up right away. So if I go back to this question before and look at my numbers here, I have 1 5/8. So my choices are going to be 1 or 2. That's it. I'm not going to do any halves because we're trying to estimate and we're trying to keep things easy. So if I have 8 slices and I'm going to get 5 of them, I get more than half. So I'm going to round up here. I'm going with the 2. On my other fraction, 3 1/3, half of 3 is 1.5, and I'm not there yet. So since I am not halfway, I'm going to go to the 3. So if I take 2 times 3, my answer is 6 for my estimation. So we are not using halves when we multiply. Okay? So keep that in mind when we do these practice problems. My next one is 4 2/3 times 5 5/6. My options with a 4 2/3 is either 4 or 5 for my estimation. So I'm asking myself, if I have 3 pieces of pie and I get to eat 2 of them, is that more than half or at least half? Now half of 3 is 1.5, 2 is more than that. So yes, that's more than half. I'm rounding up. If the fraction is half or more, round up. My next fraction is 5 5/6. I have 6 slices and I'm going to eat 5 of them. Half of 6 is 3, so I'm definitely more than halfway. So I'm going to bump that up. I'm going to round that up to 6. So I'm going to take 5 times 6 for my estimation, and I'm going to get 30. Problem number 3, I'm going to estimate 8 1/8 times 5 11/12. My choices for this fraction here are 8 and 9. If I get 1 out of 8 pieces, I'm definitely less than half. So I'm going to go with the 8. The 5 and 11/12, if I have 12 pieces and I get 11 of the 12, that's almost all of it. So I'm going to round up here to 6. 8 times 6 is 48. Question number 4, 5 3/4 times 4 11/12. If I have 4 pieces and I get 3, that's more than half, so I'm going to round up again, 6. And then 4 11/12, 11 out of 12 pieces is almost the whole thing, so I'm going to go up again. So 5, and 5 times 6 is 30. Now I'm going to keep this idea when I switch to division. We're going to use compatible numbers. I want you to write this definition down in your notebooks. Compatible numbers are numbers that look nice or friendly. So when we use these, we want to make sure we can do mental math in our heads by making our numbers friendly. So when we estimate, we may have numbers that don't divide evenly. We will make them compatible. We will make them friendly numbers. So we start with this first example, 43 1/4 divided by 5 7/8. I'm still going to use the same rule of thumb. If you have a fraction that's halfway or more, we're going to bump it up. Otherwise, we're going to stay the same. So 43 and a fourth. 1/4 is less than half, so we're going to keep it at 43. Divided by, and then I have 5 and 7/8, and 7/8 is definitely more than a half because 7 is more than 4, so we're going to bump that up to 6. The problem here is these two numbers are not compatible. We have to find two numbers that are close to these two that are friendly numbers. So if I keep the 6, I'm thinking, what's a number I can divide by 6 that's close to 43? Now I'm thinking here I could do 42. 42 is really close to 43 and it works. It's friendly with 6. So 42 divided by 6 is 7. That's how we're going to work with division. We got to have compatible friendly numbers. Example number 2, I have 21 and a half divided by 5 and 11/12. This is at least a half, so I'm going to bump 21 and a half up to 22. And then I have 5 and 11/12. I know 11/12 is nearly a whole, so we're going to bump that up to 6. My problem here is I can't do mental math with 22 and 6. They are not compatible or friendly numbers. So I'm trying to look at numbers with these two that would work, that are friendly with each other. I could do something like 24 divided by 6. That is compatible. Those are friendly numbers. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. My answer here would be 4. Maybe I want to do something like 20. That's only 2 away from 22. But 6 isn't going to work. But I could change this 6 to a 5. Those are friendly numbers. And I'm still going to get 4. So I want to show you here there's more than one option for friendly numbers, but try to stay as close to the original numbers as you can when you're making friendly compatible numbers. My next example is 8 and 1/8 divided by 3 and 1/5. On our first mixed number, 8 and 1/8, 1 out of 8 pieces is less than half, so I'm going to keep it at 8. And then I have 3 and 1/5, and 1/5 is also less than half, so I'm going to keep it at 3. Now this looks pretty ugly. These numbers don't work together, but right away I can think of a number that's friendly with 8 that's really close to 3. I could do 2, and 8 divided by 2 would give me 4. And some of you might have actually been thinking, well, let's do a 4. That's just as close. My answer here is going to be 2. Both of those would work. So our homework for today is going to be page 190. We're going to do 15 to 23 all.